As President Trump's foreign policies stir up global tension, China is stepping into the spotlight. At the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, Xi Jinping urged 20 world leaders, including Russia, Iran, and India, to unite economically and politically, presenting China as a counterweight to U.S. influence. The big question: is Beijing truly offering stability, or is this just power politics under a different banner? Mike, when China's pushing for a multipolar world and deep economic ties amongst U.S. rivals, do you think this represents a real shift in global power dynamics, or just a temporary alliance built on frustration with Washington?
I don't even think that it's a temporary alliance. I think that it's a sham. I mean, and I know it's a strong statement, but look, you had all these countries come to attend this thing. You had China, like you just said. You had China. You had India. You had Iran. You had Russia. I mean, the long list of, I'm going to call it schoolyard bad boys. Everybody that was a schoolyard bad boy was in attendance to this, right? And for those that are not as familiar with some of the dynamics between this, the three biggest players there really were Russia, China, and India. Russia, China, and India don't like each other, okay? They really don't like each other. They never have. So to get them to cooperate on something is more of a cooperation by either default or because of necessity, and that only is going to last so long. And the reality is that I think the Chinese economy has been and continues to be having issues. So they're let's call them the main power there, right? So obviously the Chinese economy or the Chinese government in general is stronger than, say, Russia or India. However, over time, China is weakening. If you look at their birth rate right now, as an example, it's one of the worst in the world, and it's so low that they're aging out, right? So what's happening in China is they're similar to what we experienced in the United States, where you have all these people that suddenly are on health care, and you've got to support your older people. Well, China is facing this. They had a huge boom of people that were young. The average age of China is increasing significantly. So now they've got to take care of all these, and which also, by the way, means they have less workforce. Their workforce is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So they have some economic issues for sure over the long run. So I see this meeting more of a FU in the face of Washington. I think there's a lot of optics involved in this too, similarly to what we talked about with some of the other issues. And I just don't think that I'm not too worried. That is not an alliance that's going to last.
Okay. Beijing put on one of the most visually striking military parades in recent memory. Columns of tanks rolling past Tiananmen Square, fighter jets trailing colored smoke, and even futuristic systems like hypersonic missiles and robotic displays. A true show of might that drew the eyes of the world. Mike, looking only at the visuals and the sheer spectacle of the event, how would you grade it compared to the recent parade in Washington, D.C.?
Well, I mean, there's no comparison. That's like saying, if the Chinese parade was the NFL, the one in Washington D.C. was like the junior high school, B squad. I mean, if you're rating it just optics of what it looked like, China wins that.
It's not even fair. The reason I even brought that question up, Mike, was, do you remember how hard it was to get some kind of support for Trump's idea of even having a parade?
Yeah, impossible.
And now some of those same people are coming back and saying, look at where China is now. Look at their parade. So now you all of a sudden understand the symbolism when it's on the other side, but you didn't understand it when it was on our side just because it was Trump's idea.
Mm-hmm.
It was only because it was Trump's idea. Mike, just a few weeks ago, Trump brought Putin to Alaska for a one-on-one summit. Days later, he hosted all the major European leaders at the White House, claiming the world was lining up behind U.S. leadership. But now, we've got China hosting as guest of honor Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, Narendra Modi, and all these same leaders at a massive military parade, fresh off their own big international summit. So, Mike, do you think Trump's high-profile meetings with Putin and Europe's leaders were effective, or did China just pull the rug out from under him by stealing the spotlight?
I think they're equally ineffective. I think that the what happened in Washington was also optics, and obviously you saw the result out of it. We've got nothing. We've got nothing. And we got no closer to Ukraine and Russia solving any problem. That's kind of been dead in the water. They're trying to revive it again now, but it's not getting anywhere. And I think when you look at the three of them marching, when you had Putin and Xi and what's his name, Rocket Man, walking together, North Korea, this is a joke. I mean, you can't take any of that seriously. You can't take the. I mean, think about it. This is like out of a novel where you got these banana republic dictators walking together, marching together. You got the Rocket Man comes in by train. Okay, give me a fucking break. This guy's a joke. The country is a piece of shit. North Korea is never going to go anywhere. They're not really a threat to anybody. They can't get out of their own way. They're all, he's destroying his own people. It's a load of crap. It's a total puppet government anyways, because in 10 minutes, Russia or China, for that matter, could probably take it over. And then you've got Putin, who looked like a feeble little shaky creature next to the Chinese guy. And Putin has no control, barely has any control over his own territory, realistically. If China wanted to go in and take over all of eastern Russia, they could get away with it and probably win that. Because think about it, the peninsula in far eastern Russia, most of those people are ethnically Chinese. Or more similar, more Asian than they are European for sure. And over history, China has long controlled some of those areas. So China is a much stronger country than Russia.
I agree
so
with that.
so when I put all those three guys marching along, looking at the military parade, to me that was China showing North Korea and Russia who's the boss. And as they said, this was a show for President Trump sitting in Washington, and they were hoping he was watching. And of course, Trump says, "Oh yeah, I'm watching your parade." So it's optics. It's a bunch of. It's to me, it was a nothing burger. I mean, we all know. I wouldn't have doubt if half of that stuff that China was parading was fake. You had walking robotic dogs that probably couldn't start up. You had laser beam. They had some. I saw some big round things on the backs of trucks. So you had laser beam things. They probably, who knows if they worked or not. Look at North Korea. North Korea's been doing military parades forever, and they've long, been determined that half those missiles that they got are like made out of paper mache.
Wow.
So that's my thought on those guys.
Wow.
Yeah, see,
Mike,
you never know what Mike's going to say.
We are on polar opposites of this for sure.
Okay.
So I'll just walk it from where you just stopped. One of the things I was going to mention was there was a time where when you saw military parades like this outside of America, the immediate thought process was half that stuff, if you unscrew it, it ain't even nothing inside of it. It's just it's all fake. We're past that, Mike, with China. You mentioned Korea. Matter of fact, they just had like a big destroyer that they were christening, and
It sunk.
right. But this ain't Korea. This is China. China has been building stuff for everybody for a while now.
Oh,
So
I'll give you that there was more real stuff in the parade than fake stuff, and certainly much more powerful stuff than North Korea. Yeah, I'm not putting them on the same level.
but it still sounds like you are not putting them on the same level as America.
I'm
And
not. America would crush them. Absolutely fucking crush them.
I think that we are missing a lot on that, Mike. And the significance of them at the meetings and then being at the parade, I think you are discounting that way, way, way too much. And true enough, the main guys were Kim Jong Un and Vladimir Putin, no doubt. But you need to look at the laundry list of countries from other continents, Africa, and Asia, and Europe, and stuff.
Yeah, most of them did not go to the parade, though. We're talking about two different things. They went to the conference. They did not go to the parade.
They didn't sit with the guests of honor.
I think a lot of them left.
Oh, I'm sure some of them left, but they still showed up to the main part where they conducted business. But what I'm getting to, Mike, is, and like and for our listeners, if you get the opportunity while you listening to this, pull up a map of that region on that coast where China is, and you will see that almost every island that is surrounding China, there's like a barrier of islands surrounding China, and the majority of them are supposed to be allies of America. And not only allies, but they've allowed us to have military presence on their islands. And that has really been the only reason why China has been so nice with us up to this point, is because we pretty much got them hemmed up.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the list of people beyond the guest of honor, almost every one of those China islands, almost all of those allies were there. And I sent you the video. I was hoping that you watched the first 15 minutes. They was in line like the king, like they were coming to see the king, shaking his hand, bowing to him and everything. Xi Jinping basically this weekend, he unzipped his pants and gave everybody a look. And they were all bowing their heads, kissing it.
I'm not arguing that, but I think a lot of it is smoke and mirrors.
As far as the power of China's military, I want to, and these other ones, I want to give you some information, Mike. Do you know what a nuclear triad is? Mm-hmm. There's only 4 nuclear triad nations. And for our listening audience that doesn't know, those are countries that can land, air, and sea dispense a missile. And you can also send a missile intercontinental to another continent. There's only 4 countries that have that ability. 3 of them were at the summit and were watching the parade. There's only 9 countries in the world that have nuclear weapons. 5 of the 9 were there. So in some ways, even let's say we say that America has the stronger might, If China can get one or two of these other countries that are a triad nuclear country to align with him, we in trouble.
Yeah, they're not gonna though. And the reason they're not gonna is that everybody hates China. And quite
Everybody
frankly,
hates America
they hate
more.
no, I disagree. And even worse, China hates everybody.
Bro, everybody hates everybody.
Not necessarily. No, hate's a strong word. China really hates everybody. They have always their culture, their history, their leadership has always been one that is self-contained and looked at it as separate from everybody else.
Mike.
They don't cooperate well.
Mike, I'm going to say a really strong statement here. If we were to poll countries and we were to ask all the countries in the world, if you had zero fear of America and you could merely make the choice off of preference, would you still deal with America? And you excluded European countries,
mm-hmm.
It would be almost a landslide of we hate America. The only countries that are that actually in their heart like America are Anglo-Saxon countries. Once you get outside of that, don't nobody like America because they look at America, even though we are a melting pot, is looked at as white America. And most of these other countries do not like America. If they could, they only deal with us out of fear. And the whole idea of these meetings, the whole idea of them being at this parade and the display was to say, fear them no more. And I think you are really missing that.
I'm missing it. I think if you gave Vietnam as an example, a choice,
they would look at how many lives America killed, what they took them through in the 70s in the war, and how they've had to agree to occupying their country.
I think they would choose America over fucking China all day long.
Okay.
Those they have hated each other from the core. That's like talking about Israel
and there's a very visceral thing you're missing. And it's staying with the Vietnamese. In their heart, if they see a pale-skinned guy with big round eyes and they see a guy with yellow skin and slanted eyes, they are naturally more in line with them. That's what I said. If it's not a fear thing, they're going to pick their own. Almost every country I've ever been to, I get a whole different conversation than you, Mike, because they feel like anybody that's not white in America is almost like a refugee in America, especially black people.
Mm-hmm.
And they spout their hate to be freely. I'm telling you, you don't have a pulse on this one. Outside of European countries, almost the whole rest of the world hates America. They say they like America.
I am going to strongly disagree with you on this.
And a high percentage of the immigrants who come to America don't like America because people be like, they wouldn't want to come. They come here for the opportunity, but they hate you. I promise you that.
Okay, we're going to agree to disagree on this one. I don't see it at all like that.
Well, tell me why. I gave you reasons why I think that. Why do you think they would love you?
Oh, I'm not saying that.
Every one of them countries, you done occupied them.
First of all, okay, Phil, there's a huge... Wait. Let's back up for a second. There's a huge difference between countries and people. So I'll give you an example. I went to Lebanon as an example. The Lebanese government does not like America. The people...
Why they like America?
People loved me. I had no problems whatsoever. I've never had, in the 120 countries that I've traveled to, I've never had people hate me.
Okay, and let me tell you what they see. They see money, and I can't show my hate. I'm telling you.
We're going to agree to disagree on this. I'm not backing down. And if you think for a second that China's got a play on this, no way. One button, we take them out. They are not powerful. That country, look, we learned.
I sure hope our leadership ain't thinking like this, because then we really fuck.
2 years ago, well, we had a bunch of people saying that Russia was a strong power. Russia is a fucking fourth world nation. They can't even run a truck 400 miles on a road without the tires going flat.
China.
I understand. But 2 years ago, people were saying Russia was a superpower. Russia's no stronger than Cuba. So Russia right now has the most nuclear weapons in number. If you look at it not by much. I think they have 40 more than the United States supposedly. And I would say 90% of them wouldn't even take off.
Okay, I could say that about America then.
Nope.
If I was on a Russian podcast right now, I could say the same thing. You
could say it, but it wouldn't be true. You could go to you could go to an American military base where we store fucking trucks, and they've been putting new tires on 72-year-old Jeeps, and they drive. Like that's what we do in America. We are maintenance oriented. Whereas these superpowers are about show. China, Russia, these guys are just egomaniacs. And by the way, we have an egomaniac as a president too. So I don't know.
There is no leader that isn't an egomaniac.
Well, okay, yes and no.
You cannot aspire to that without that.
Possibly, but you have legit egomaniacs when you're talking about China, Russia, North Korea, and I'll throw United States into that. These guys are all nutcases. But I'm going to take that a step further. The Chinese, as a society, have a higher propensity for dislike of people outside of their culture than any of those other ones I just named, to be honest, or anybody else in the world. So that is a limiting factor, in my opinion, of China making long-term relationships with whoever, you name it, whether it's India or Vietnam or Malaysia or Iran, or it doesn't matter who. They are one of the reasons why China has been so successful of being an authoritarian regime for so long is that the people actually support it, because their culture is very different and wired differently, and in doing so, they have never liked America, they have never liked Russia, they have never liked India. They've never liked anybody that came to their little show this weekend.
I agree.
And they don't like the people that didn't come either.
And all those people that showed up know the same thing about China.
Absolutely.
I agree with you on that part, Mike.
I am more.
But there's a basic thing of I'm going to get the wording wrong, but you're going to know what I'm talking about. The enemy of my enemy, is my friend or something like that.
Yeah, is my friend. Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
And to most countries, America is the bigger enemy.
India's going to end up on our side. And that's why China loses, because India, of all of those countries that went to that, was the most powerful country at that summit.
I would agree with that.
And India's going to end up on our side.
So why do you think they're going to end up on our side, Mike?
Because they've had a very long relationship, fraught as it is, obviously with England and with the United Kingdom and with the Europeans, and because of their culture is more aligned. They speak more aligned than China, and from an understanding level, there's more English spoken.
I
a
give you
lot more
that.
English spoken. It's very heavily spoken. And the communication factor is very important. You can't underrate the communication factor. So they're going to be way more able to communicate with us than they are with China over the long term.
I agree with that, but why is India able to communicate so well with us? Because we were the guys to fear, we were the guys in power, we were the guys to do business with.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yep.
are not looking like that anymore. It wasn't because they were like, we like Americans. It was like, we see an opportunity, let's blend in. We see safety in them.
I don't think that opportunity is going away. I think that opportunity is still going to be there, and I think they're still going to align with it.
But what I'm saying is, I don't believe like America's about to just disappear or something like that and not be a major player. But it's a lot. It's like it's hard to explain. You could be making a lot of money under somebody, but you spite them. You wish you could be making that money under somebody else because you don't like the way they manage you. And that's what I'm trying to get you to understand.
See, what I think is the reason I don't think China in the long run is going to be successful is that most of those players that you're talking about that went to that summit, we'll call it, I think their days are numbered. I think I'll give you an example. Let's just use Russia for a second. I think Russia's days are numbered. I wouldn't foresee in 20 years Russia being a country any longer. I really don't. I think that once Putin dies, I think that it will split further into. I mean, Russia is a artificial country, meaning artificial borders. There's many countries that or ethnic cultures and stuff that make up that country. I think they are going to split into a bunch of countries, which obviously is going to weaken the shit out of them. They're already weak. So I think they're going to slowly fade away. I think North Korea, I think it's a matter of time that North Korea collapses too. I just do. I mean, they've held on a long time. I'll give them that credit. But I think eventually they collapse. And they're not really a big player in this anyways, because as we know.
I don't agree with the North Korea, and it's only because of location.
Kind of, but isolation, well, yes, but listen to what I just said. They will collapse when Russia collapses.
Okay.
Because you're right, North Korea very much is on location, but once they're connected to some other country that isn't Russia any longer, then I think that I think Russia to a large extent keeps North Korea afloat.
See, I'm with your thought process, except to the end. When Russia phases out, part of it will be because China has replaced them.
I do agree with that. And I suppose, yes, if indeed China took all of Russia's territory all the way around North Korea, then maybe North Korea would become a puppet thing of China. But I mean, regardless, I don't think that a lot of these players, with the exception of India, is an up and coming power. You saw a bunch of other countries, like you said at that thing, but a lot of them were like, I mean, it's just a bunch of messes from Iran. I don't know who else was there. If I had to take a guess, if you weren't telling me who was there, I mean, I probably somebody from Cuba and Venezuela,
What was there?
Iran, Angola. I mean, I can list all these. But yeah, I've been to a lot of these places. They're all about the fucking mess. So I mean, these countries are barely countries.
If you look on a map, a lot of those countries are still valuable. The only reason
for sure. Venezuela is a good example. Venezuela is extremely valuable.
Resources. I wasn't even thinking about resources as much as logistically for the army. The only reason why Taiwan is such a big deal is because where it is. It's not
geography.
A huge island.
No.
It's because
geography.
It allows us to have a military presence, and it helps with our strategy and everything. And all of those other places that you named have that same thing.
Yep.
That's the only reason why we care about those things. And what I'm
Yes.
saying is they ain't ever showed up to nothing in America
Right.
like that. Mike, I kind of even look at this. Let's look at this as like just parties, because we seem to be good at throwing parties, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
should both know about this, right? Like, if you live in a neighborhood that's like family oriented, maybe, and a couple of the guys who are fathers in that neighborhood are kind of like leaders in the neighborhood. Maybe one, they run businesses in the city or whatever,
Yep.
and each of them likes to throw parties in the neighborhood. And Trump, all of the stuff he did a few weeks ago is like one of those guys threw a party,
Yep.
and everybody thought it was a big party. And then it was like how when we throw a party and there's other parties going on, but everybody's at our party. And that statement is a lot. He
Mm-hmm.
threw the big party that he threw the P. Diddy party. He threw the big party and everybody showed up. And the guy who thought he was cool and who threw a big party, he didn't get invited. The symbolism of that is huge. It's not even
I
just huge amongst the power players. Sometimes those power players have to go back home and sway the country into a certain thought or belief. Well, if I just came back from this summit and you see Xi Jinping shaking my hand and I see more military might than I've ever seen before, I can come back and get the whole country, my parliament, my prime minister, all of that. I can sway them towards China. I see far more in the symbolism and the statements and everything that's going on. And on top of that, going back to Venezuela, I believe that we are not in Venezuela because of no damn drugs. If you again look on a map, Venezuela protrudes into the Atlantic Ocean. And if you look at the way our country is protected, the only missing link is the Panama Canal, which we just shored up our agreement and we've put a
Mhm.
presence there, and out there wide, out there in the open Atlantic Ocean. Venezuela is the perfect jumping off point. There's no excuse for us to be in those waters for no reason. But if we say it's some terrorism going on in Venezuela, it covers the idea of us having 5 subs and a bunch of ships in that area. We are ramping up to the possibility of war, us and China. And a lot of these moves that we're looking at, I see them as military moves. So it's that. Again, I mentioned the chain of islands that are around China. All of them showed up, and they are all allies of America, and they all have military bases on their islands. I could see some of them having the guts to say, "Get out of here," with China's backing, and we're thousands and thousands of miles away from there. So if a country like Taiwan said, "America, you got to go," there's not much we could do other than go or go full tilt boogie war. All of those chain of islands
Oh,
could
I
be
agree with
wiped
that.
out.
I think you're discounting the other thing you're forgetting about is China's. They're like pussies. China's they're like pussies. They're like look, use Venezuela as an example. They're not helping Venezuela worth a damn. They talk a good game. Listen to
Because
what
they
they
don't
say.
care.
Well, that would be a great place for China to control over here in our hemisphere. But they're not willing. They're not willing. China does not put their force where their mouth is. They've had a very long history of that. So unless that changes, and it could, but right now China does a lot of talking, no action. And that's not just been with America. That's with other countries. They even with Russia, who I would argue they're way stronger than Russia. But Russia, when it has come to a potential physical confrontation or even in a location, China has backed off and left. China's gone into Africa. They've gone into South America. They've helped build, roads and bridges and dams and stuff like that, and have made deals. You could argue that they've made some shitty deals, or they've made good deals, not shitty for the country they went in, to try to get control into those countries. They're good at that, of weaseling their way into countries. But then when it comes to suddenly Russia Africa's a good example of this. Russia sent in what's his name's before they killed him, forces in a couple of those countries.
Gaddafi.
No, the Russian guy that they killed.
Yeah. With the
when they sent in their military guys, China was in those same regions, and China kind of gracefully exited. So China's not really willing to do anything physical, and unless that changes, that's why I call them pussies.
So I don't think it's pussy. I think that in the environment at that time, that was the best move, because at that time America was clearly the top dog. Clearly had control of a worldwide economy that could affect China. That ain't the case no more.
I think China has to be, we've talked about tariffs and whatnot. I think they have to be careful. I mean, obviously we have to be careful on our side in America, but I think China has to be very careful as well, that the sentiment does not become, if too many countries start agreeing with America or thinking that, not necessarily on the tariffs, but like saying, China has a little bit too much power here. They're making too much of our stuff. I'll give you an example. There's a big news down here in Mexico. Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, just is now imposing tariffs on China. And that has nothing to do with America. Mexico has come to the conclusion that they buy too much shit from China, and they don't like the power either. So you got to watch that carefully. If a lot of countries come to this same conclusion, ironically, similarly to what Donald Trump feels, that could weaken China.
The only thing about Mexico, though, bro, it's contiguous to us, so
it is.
It favors them to make decisions that maybe seem like they're not connected to America, and America may not have told them to do it, but it was in their best interest.
Well, I'll tell you
matter of fact, you got more out of it by doing it on your own without us telling it.
Well, I'll tell you what okay, so let me go with what you just said. What you just said is somewhat true. The main reason why she's putting the tariffs in is because there is so much automobile manufacturing in Mexico, and a lot of the brands, not all of them, but they're American brands, and a lot of them are what I would call Japanese brands that are really American, meaning that like a lot of the final assembly is happening in the United States, even though it's Toyota and various other Chinese brands or Japanese brands. But the number one, I'll give you an example, electric cars, in the number one country that China exports to is Mexico. And I tell you, I see it all over the place here. I can't go to town here without seeing a whole mess of BYDs. That's all you see here is Chinese. So Mexico, it's not in their best interest to suddenly be importing a bunch of Chinese cars when they make all of these other cars here in the country. So that's what started this whole tariff thing. So yeah, you'd be surprised at how many Chinese cars are here. A lot.
Mike, you just brought up cars. That's a good way for us to end this. First, I want to ask you, what were the wow moments, if there were any, for you on this military parade thing? For me, And what made me think to ask you that was a fly ass car he was driving around in.
Oh yeah, you mean the Chinese limo thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. It looks. Tell me if I'm wrong. Didn't it look like something that came out of James Bond?
Wow, that's exactly what I was gonna say, Mike.
Yeah,
I was like, I love this, and I mean
yeah. It
like
was a cool
old
car.
school James Bond.
Yeah. Yes. Old school James Bond. It had. There was parts of Aston Martin in the headlights and stuff. I was like,
Yes.
dude, we need. I want one of those cars.
And I decided to look it up, Mike. And for our viewers, if you want to look it up, all you have to type in is China's Rolls Royce, and it'll pop up because I can't pronounce the name of the company. I think it's called
Yeah.
Quan Lee or Kong Lee or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's funny.
they've been making them for a while, and that's an accurate description. It's like a Rolls Royce on
Yeah.
steroids.
It was cool.
Mike, you got anything else you want to say?
Hell no. Same. I kind of feel like we covered it. We got all intense here today. It was a lot of fun, as always. Yeah. No. We'll see everybody next week. I think. I hope.
All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on the trail soon.